You're listening to the Love Unplugged podcast, episode 125. Ever wonder what it takes to create a luxury brand and client experience? Is it just providing a client gift or posting beautiful images? No. There's actually a lot more that goes into creating that type of experience, and today we are learning from an expert how to do so. So tune in to learn more about a white glove service and what it takes to create one, but also how PR can elevate your marketing strategy and create a strong brand presence. So without further ado, let's get to it. Hey there, I'm your host, Jessica Fergon, and I am passionate about doing the inner work needed to reach your goals. Let me be your guide as we navigate all the fears and insecurities that surface when it's time to step outside of your comfort zone. Along with my knowledgeable guests and industry experts, I'm here to teach you how to reawaken your life purpose and passion and create the steps to turn your intentions into action. Ultimately, my goal is to empower you to rise above those blocks holding you back and start living a life that you are worthy and deserving of. So come on, it's time to slow down, find a comfy spot with your favorite organic tea, and get inspired. Thank you for tuning in to the Love Unplugged podcast. Hello, loves. Today I am joined by the lovely Hannah Nieves, marketing, branding, and PR expert, as well as the founder of the Hannah Nieves Co. agency. With extensive experience in marketing, branding, and PR, Hannah knows what it takes to build, market, and promote authentic brands and create results. She truly loves the work she does and created this business out of the sheer passion of being able to serve female entrepreneurs and visionaries just like yourself. What started out as a mentorship program turned business has allowed Hannah to serve women in a multitude of industries and creative backgrounds. So welcome, Hannah. I am so freaking pumped to have you as my guest. I'm so excited to learn all about your story and your advice. But before we start, for those that don't know you yet, I would love for you to share a little bit more about you personally.
First off, I just have to say thank you again for having me. I'm so excited to be here and it's such a pleasure. So, like you mentioned, my name is Hannah. I am from New York, born and raised. I run an agency and a consulting firm, as well as an education platform where I help newly established business owners up to seven figures elevate their brands, enhance their reputation, and expand their revenue through my trio of marketing, branding, and PR. A little bit about me.
Awesome. Now, if anybody can go check out her Instagram and her business or her website, I swear she has such an amazing brand. It's ridiculous. So she knows what she's talking about, and we are going to dive into all of this juice today, and I'm so excited about it. So let's start at the beginning, Hannah. What was your experience leading up to creating your business, and what led you to starting your agency? What was that journey like for you?
Absolutely. So prior to this world, I was director of marketing of a national home interiors brand based out of New York, came from the world of managing, multi-million dollar marketing plans, working with big developers in the city. And even prior to that life, I was working in commercial real estate. So I was underwriting and marketing crazy, but $500 million worth of real estate assets. So came from like a very Wolf of Wall Street environment, if you can imagine. And loved what I did so much, but I always suffered with burnout. And I always knew entrepreneurship was going to be something I would do. I just never knew what it was going to be. So fast forward all the experience, and then I would go through instances of burnout, and I didn't really realize it until 2 years ago. I actually ended up in the hospital from it. And it was that point where I decided I cannot keep doing this anymore. I am building someone else's dream. And that's when I decided I need to start consulting. And then it morphed into the agency and the EDU platform. But that was really the catalyst. And unfortunately, it's not a beautiful story, but it was from that adversity where I started this business.
How did you feel about leaving? I mean, that career, that's pretty much like what you dream about, right? Like that's a pretty successful career. You're in New York, you're doing all this amazing stuff. How did you feel about letting go of that and then stepping into a business of your own?
It was really interesting, when you go through, and I went through the traditional route. I went to college, got married and I got the house and drove the nice white BMW, and I had all of the things on the outside that looked, from society standards, picture perfect, right? And, the career, each level that you get, you think, okay, I'm going to feel more satisfied or I'm going to feel more fulfilled. And I always felt like there was something that was missing and I didn't know what it was. And, to be quite honest, making that transition, I, was fortunately and unfortunately transitioned into my business full time with the push of COVID, because my entire team ended up getting laid off during this time, which is unfortunate. This was over a year ago. But during that time, I was planning for my exit and I knew that there was something else after this. And it was really hard, to be quite honest, when you leave. And for anyone that's listening that comes from like a corporate background, there is an identity shift that you have to go through, because you're letting go this identity of you in the corporate career, and especially in New York, where I personally felt like my identity was consumed in my career, and that's who I was. So when it was taken from me and I had to build this business, it was almost like a rebirthing process of like who I was, basically.
Yeah, 100%. So, how was your experience creating this business, this agency now? Like, did you know exactly what you wanted to offer, what that was going to look like? Did you have to pivot along the way? Like, what was that whole journey like?
Absolutely. So I actually started out in more of a consulting and done for you background. So we started in that area, launched the coaching side, my EDU platform. And to answer your question, no, I didn't know exactly. And this is one thing too, where especially for newer entrepreneurs, it can be hard when you see all of this marketing messaging of like, this is who you have to work with, and you have to know exactly who you want to work with, and the messaging, which is so important. Like, I pivoted my business so many times. I pivoted my ideal client so many times. And as I grew, my business grew and my ideal clients grew. I just knew the type of leader I wanted to show up as and the type of woman I wanted to be and the type of, agency and consultant to my clients. But no, it morphed and it grew over time. And I think that's the beauty of it, is that you don't need to know exactly what you're doing. You just need to know your long-term vision and let that be the guiding factor to you moving forward and evolving.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you've had so many pivots because I'm the same way. I started out as one thing and I'm like completely different now. And that's like the whole journey is learning more about yourself, learning more about what you actually want. And that's the fun part.
It is. And it's so fun. I mean, I'm an Enneagram 1. I am a manifesting generator, ENFJ, like type A person. I love structure. And I think too, also pivoting from a corporate career where there is a lot of structure into your own business, where like you don't answer to anyone. I don't answer to anyone in the morning, and I think it just comes with its own set of its own playground, if that makes sense, and you make the rules.
Have fun with it.
Mhm, mhm.
So, what have been your biggest learnings and your biggest wins as an entrepreneur, as a business owner?
Ooh, I mean, I think the biggest lessons I have always learned always came from failure. And that is something that in the online world, in entrepreneurship specifically, we hear failure and we get resistance from it, right? And I always say, if I'm not failing, I'm not growing. And I know that's kind of crazy to say, but in order to have a high growth company that is constantly growing and evolving, you're going to have to make the mistakes. So I would say the biggest learning lessons were from failures. I mean, in terms of like what I'm really proud of is just like the leadership skills in both myself. Like, I've led a team before, but the leadership skills of growing my team has been something that has been so beautiful to watch, because now it's not just me leading, I'm creating leaders on my team. So that has been one of the biggest lessons. And especially running an agency where your team is the heart of your business and it's what makes it run, and you have to have a high performing team.
hmm What do you think is key to making a good leader?
Ooh, great question. I would say the biggest thing is the emotional intelligence, right? Like, A lot of people, you hear leadership and you think, oh, it's just being bossy or telling people what to do. And it's so much more than that. I've done a lot of studies and tests on my team for them to also know, like, how do they all communicate? How do I communicate? And that's the biggest thing. It's just the emotional intelligence to know that we are all different people. We all communicate in different ways. And how can we be better to serve each other more by knowing that information? So that has been by far, I would say, the biggest thing when it comes to leadership and just being, empathetic and compassionate. That's another thing that, especially being a leader, you have to have.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, I love that. All right, so I want to dive into your business because I mean, I have such admiration for what you've created. So,
Oh,
you and your business, you exude luxury. You exude this really white glove service that you are providing for your clients. So, how do we go about creating that type of brand and experience? But also, what makes a good brand?
great questions here. And thank you so much again for that, too, because, when we hear the word luxury, what I want to start off with is that, creating a luxury brand is not only down to price, right? It's not just about how
Mhm.
expensive your product or service is. There's so much more than that. And you mentioned the elevated experience, right? The white glove service, and that plays a role into luxury brands. So if you're thinking about like brands similar to, for example, a Louis Vuitton, right? I mean, it's a brand that's had so much heritage. It's been here for so, so long. And, could you get another handbag that's a lot cheaper? Absolutely. But why do people actually purchase from, a Louis Vuitton? And it usually comes down to that emotional connection, the experience that they have when they go to that store, right?
Mhm.
So, in terms of how do we create a luxury brand, it comes down to offering a really high quality product or service, right? Attention to detail and customization, white glove service. So, especially if you are a service based business, this looks like the experience clients have when they work with you from start to finish, right? There's so many different things. I like to almost think of sensory branding, especially like how do we use our senses to create this full embodied experience for our customers? And what makes a good brand more specifically, it really just comes down to those, and especially if you're an entrepreneur, like those that are representing their brand in the most authentic way, right? People buy from people, and I think what makes a good brand are those that stand by their values and their mission and their purpose.
100%. Oh, I love that. Now, with the client experience, creating your client experience, did you map it out from like start to end, exactly what that's going to look like? What are the touch points? What is that client going to experience? Do you provide client gifts? Like, did you take that time to like map it all out so that you knew exactly what you were going to be providing your clients?
So when I first started, and this is too, I'm a very empathetic person. I love to serve people. That is just my nature. And, I always say too, again, if you want that luxury brand, elevated brand, you have to have that level of customer experience. And, when I started my business, especially in the online entrepreneur world, you hear a lot about like client acquisition. How can we get more leads? How can we build the funnel and pack the funnel with leads, right? And there a lot of people weren't talking about the retention. So you've gotten these leads now. How do you actually retain them? How do you build loyal clients that will refer you business? A lot of my business personally was done on referrals. It still is. And specifically, I started to build it out piece by piece. Do you need to have it mapped out in the beginning? Not necessarily, but I knew how I wanted my clients to feel. So I worked backwards from that feeling. So, yes, client gifts are just one piece of the pie. It's so much more than that. It's the touch points from before they're a client all the way to when they are offboarded. And this is where you can use tools like your project management platform or your email platform or a client concierge manager like we have, implementing different pieces and tools in order to deliver the service. So, yes, short answer is now we have it fully mapped out from start to finish. And it's something that we are still growing and adapting and evolving as well. It's not just a one and done project. We actually look at our client experience every quarter and seeing how we can improve that as well.
I love that. All right, so let's dive into what it takes to build an agency business. With different offerings and a team, what is it like running an agency? And what have you learned that's worked well in structuring your team and your schedule to stay on top of it? Because we all know, if as an employee, just doing the work is one thing, but then when you become a manager and you also have your work and then managing a team, that's like a whole other level. So I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, agency life is different. Agency life, and again, like I do all three in the sense of have an agency, I do consulting, and then I also do the coaching side. So I know what it's like from all three sides and the things you need to have just from out of experience. And running an agency is a beast like no other. The biggest thing is, again, with agency is just, again, goes back to that customer experience. You're delivering a product or service that's, unparalleled to the market. And, especially running agency, there's a lot of organization. And like I said before, your team structure is everything, because if you want to build out a profitable agency, you have to learn how to lead your team, structure your offerings, and XYZ. But in terms of how do I structure my team and my schedule, I love using platforms like, for example, a ClickUp. That's a platform that we use to manage all of our projects, and using tools like Slack and whatnot. But with that, it comes back to leadership. Like, we have built a team and we are still building the team. And I always say to them that I want you to be able to run without me. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where that leadership comes into play, where I am getting them self sufficient. Because a lot of times with agencies, usually the agency owner is the bottleneck of everything. And in order to have a thriving agency, you have to build a team culture that is so supportive, so strong, and so empowering that your team could literally run without you. So that's the biggest thing. And in terms of staying top of it all, I mean, setting clear boundaries is huge. And also for me personally, as the owner, really looking at my to-do list and thinking, okay, I'm only going to get a small percentage of this done, right, throughout the day, dealing with all the different things. What are the actual needle moving tasks that have to get done, and what can be delegated? That's how I look at my to-do list every single day.
I love that. And I love that you brought up team culture. Like, a lot of people overlook this, but the culture is so important.
Hmm.
Like, it sets the
Yeah,
tone for everything.
it is. And, you hear about culture, especially from, big companies like Google and Apple. And, you get this picture in your mind of it's just foosball tables, and people doing rock climbing walls. And that's kind of like the picture of culture, but it just goes so much deeper than that. My team knows when we have our calls together and individually that I'm not just here supporting their work for the HN brand. I'm also here supporting their personal initiatives. So, for example, one of my team members wants to launch a YouTube channel. So, I'm holding her accountable for those personal things. And I basically took all the things that were wrong in my past, corporate experience. And I was like, okay, how can I create this really inclusive and supportive environment that allows my team to grow and deliver the
Mm-hmm.
best service and product for our clients, and still be able to like have them, pursue their personal endeavors on the same time. So, yeah.
Oh, I love that. It goes so much more than the things that you can just give employees, right? Like a rock climbing wall. That doesn't necessarily mean your employees are going to be happy, right? And I love that you acknowledge the personal stuff because, as much as we want our employees to be focused on work, there's just so much more to life than that as well. They have, passions and projects on the side and stuff. And the fact that you're supporting them with those and holding them
Hmm.
accountable and being there for them and like encouraging that, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's something that takes time, and it goes back to that emotional intelligence, because it's not just me. We have a team now, and I also have full-time staff on my team. I have, three full-time staff members, and it's a little bit different when, I'm not just putting food on the table for myself anymore. I'm putting food on the table for a few other people. So it's how can we create this really incredible culture and environment that just fosters so much growth.
Oh, that's so good. All right, so let's talk about marketing and PR because this is your jam. I want to know
Hmm.
what is key to creating a solid marketing strategy, and is PR actually essential? Like, how do you get featured in
Hmm.
publications? Should you hire a PR manager or something? Can you do it yourself? Like, what does that look like pitching yourself?
Absolutely. And I just actually sent out an email today about this, because the biggest thing that I hear is like Instagram's algorithm is down, right? And there's so many changes in the algorithm. And a lot of people, a lot of clients of mine also like build their brands online, right? I think the biggest thing to have a solid marketing strategy is that there's no one end all be all, right? I always talk about omni-channel marketing. How are you communicating that message across different platforms? And listen, you don't have to communicate your message in, 50 different social media platforms, right? It's all about how can you drive people back to your email list where like you own that email list. You can sell to your audience through that email list. So it's omni-channel marketing can look very different. So I'm a big proponent to omni-channel marketing. Um, PR is a tool in the toolkit, right? So when you think about, think about like a wheel for visual purposes. You have branding, which is like what the anchor of what your business is founded on, right? So who you are, what you stand for, the visual aesthetics, all those different types of things. You have the marketing, which is how you communicate that message and how you serve your audience and drive leads. And then from a PR standpoint, it's like the visibility. So it's taking all the marketing and the branding that you've done and pushing it out there to show that your brand is a credible source. And PR, I think, is one of the most underutilized tools, especially not a lot of people talk about it. I leverage PR from the beginning of my business. And even prior to this world in corporate, I was managing a lot of big influencer campaigns, working with huge tastemakers like Martha Stewart and Kevin Sharkey and Aaron Featherston, Misty Copeland, just to name a few. And it's so powerful to leverage this piece in your business. It's a multifaceted tool. So, it builds authority, it builds credibility, and it helps your visibility as well. You're basically leveraging other platforms like, for example, a Forbes, Business Insider, Entrepreneur, leveraging different media platforms that get millions and millions of views every month, and you're doing this for free. So, in terms of like how can you actually implement that? Listen, you can absolutely hire an agency. That's what we do for clients. The biggest thing with PR is that it's time sensitive. There's so much back end research and creative writing that goes into PR and relationship building. And a lot of the times people just don't want to be involved with it. And it's a lot of work. But can you absolutely do it yourself? Can you do it yourself? Absolutely. In addition to having the agency, I also coach clients on how to do this because you can absolutely do this on your own. It just takes a little bit of time and effort and discipline.
Gotcha. Now, I'd love to know because you have this idea. I mean, a lot of people do, including myself. Pitching yourself to these publications, it does seem like it's hard and you're most likely not going to get in. So there's like no point in even going down that road. But is it actually really difficult to get stuff into like Forbes or like, I don't know if Goop takes publications or anything
Mhm.
like that? Like, what is it like actually getting your stuff in it? Is it as hard as we think it is?
It's not that hard. It's really just finding the right people to connect with and build relationships. I like to think of PR again, it is a multifaceted tool. There's a lot of different things that fall under the bucket of PR. But when we're talking about media pitching, which is just one piece of the pie, it really comes down to the story. Does this align with what the writer is writing about? Is it newsworthy or time sensitive? And will it bring value, right? And I think the biggest thing is people get really hung up on how intimidating PR can be, like pitching the media, because you see Forbes and I mean, you see, for example, Entrepreneur, those are like the two biggest platforms that clients always want to get featured in. And it can feel really, really intimidating. Like, well, why would they want to feature me? And I think the beauty of it is that like everyone has their own story and their own perspective to bring. So I think it does take time and effort, and I will never sugarcoat. It does take time and effort. PR is not one where like Facebook ads, you turn it on and turn it off. You can track, impressions. It's something that builds over time, and it's like a snowball effect. The more you do it, the more it grows.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, what would you offer as advice when planning out your content to make sure that it's valuable, it's on brand, and it engages with that ideal client that you've set out?
Absolutely. I would say for the most part, the biggest thing is really just listening to who your audience is, getting clear on who that person is. And this could be for PR or, even if it's for your personal business when you're just, posting on Instagram, for example. The biggest thing is really just understanding your ideal client. But on the flip side, too, a lot of people say, and especially in the online world, conduct a lot of market research first. Ask them what they want, then deliver what they want, right? I believe that, but I'm also a little bit of a rebel in a way where sometimes your ideal client might not know exactly what they need, and it's up to us to innovate for them. So I like to make offers up before even asking for market research. I will tell my ideal client why this is so important. For example, with the white glove experience in customer service, it was something that no one was talking about in the online world. And it's not
Mhm.
necessarily one that is equated to revenue. While it is, but when you think about it, sometimes people don't think like white glove experience revenue. So I had to innovate to show, hey, this is important to your bottom line when it comes to your branding, your marketing, and everything as a whole. So I think when it comes to planning out content, it's partially understanding who your ideal client is, serving them, but also innovating at the same time.
Absolutely. Oh, that's such good advice. Now, for somebody who has an agency who stays on top of it all, and I know you use ClickUp and Slack, are there other technology or online applications that you use that have made an impact on your processes and your productivity and whatnot?
Absolutely. I love the app Harvest. It's great. It's one of the best platforms that you can just literally have at the top of your computer to track your time. I am a big proponent to tracking your tasks so that you're able to see where you're spending your time, right? Especially as the owner of an agency and a company, my time is very precious, right? Like we don't get a lot of time to ourselves, and we have to be very efficient with our time. So I do a really good audit of like, where am I spending my energy and where can my team come in and help with that, right? So I
Mhm.
love Harvest. When it comes to processes and productivity, I personally am into obviously the platforms we talk about, but also at the same time too, I love like cycle syncing and understanding like your flow, especially as women. I know there's certain weeks of the month, and really tying that back to how I operate, which is so interesting. And people probably think like, wow, you're nuts. But no, this stuff really does work. When you really understand your body as a woman, and especially as a leader, that has been so helpful. And just, finding different resources and people where I can learn that as well. So that has been so, so powerful.
Oh, I love that. You're thinking about cycle syncing. I had an interview with Nicole Jardam about that, and we were talking about how we can sync our cycles to our business and making sure
Mhm.
that we're
Powerful.
doing certain tasks at certain points throughout our cycle.
So
And it's
important.
so true. You need to, like, there's certain days that you should just not be planning certain things.
hmm hmm
All right. So, having all your experience, especially prior to having your business, where you did experience burnout and whatnot, I'd love to hear your advice on how we can prepare ourselves for growth in our business without burning ourselves out.
Ooh, I love this. Burnout is something that hits home for me so, so much. So I deeply resonate with this question and just burnout in general. And the biggest thing, it comes down to boundaries. It really comes down to what are the boundaries you're setting for yourself. And as an agency owner and as a consultant, specifically, like I, have a very large corporate client that we service. We have agency clients that are team services, and we have our EDU platform. And to the outside looking in, I get a lot of questions like, how do you do it? How do you actually do all the things? And it comes down to the boundaries that I set in place and my non-negotiables. So this looks different for everyone. My time with my husband, my time offline is so, so important to me. And it's something that no matter how big we get and how big we grow, I will never compromise that time with my spouse. And it's something that is really important to me. So I stop work at a specific time. And now every day is different. I will be completely honest. There are some days where I stop at 6 o'clock. And then there's some days where I stop at 10 o'clock and I don't start until 10 the next day. So I think it's more so not the balance, but the push and pull between when you push and
Mhm.
pull back. And then the boundaries on your time. So, for example, you will never catch me usually working on a Saturday. It's something I love to spend time with my husband. We're building our house, and for example, I have other things outside of the business that I do want to take and prioritize, right? So I just have boundaries there, and especially boundaries with communication with your team. That's another thing as an agency owner in traditional agency environment. It is so normal. This is the scary part. It's so normal to have your team work crazy hours in agency life, especially in the city. Like you hear it all the time, working from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And that's something that I told my team from the start of I value and really want to prioritize your mental health, especially from being at home. Here are the boundaries of communication with me, and here's how I'm going to respect you. So it all really comes down to boundaries and just knowing when to push and pull.
That's so good. It seems like you're really in tune with yourself. You're very self aware. And it seems
Mhm.
like you've done quite a bit of mindset work as well. So I'd
Mhm.
love to know, what is your practice like to make sure that your mindset is on point so that you can go to that next level in your business, and so that you're able to show up as your best self every day in your business and your life.
I love this too because mindset is 80% of everything. And I really appreciate you saying that because I have been doing so much work, especially on the emotional intelligence piece and just being aware. And I love to hear that. So thank you. But in terms of like mindset, I think the biggest thing is also surrounding yourself with people who are going to lift you higher. We all know, and especially when I even started my business, like a lot of people really didn't understand what I did, especially from my family and friends. It was kind of this new thing. And even my husband for a while was like, what exactly are you doing? Because it's not normal, right? It goes against the grain. So I had to personally surround myself with people that were going to uplift me and get me to where I needed to go. So that journaling, a lot of the times too, as entrepreneurs, the higher we grow, the more that we are faced with our past demons. Especially for me personally, it came down to money mindset. I had to work so much on my money mindset when I first started my business, and it's something that I still work on. And for me personally, I love journaling. That has been helpful. I love movement. So taking what I'm journaling and experiencing in my mind and actually embodying it in my body. So really just incorporating that practice. I love meditation too. I know these probably are like the answers that like a lot of people say, but they're so simple, but they're so important, if that makes sense. I am all about simplicity in every area of personally my life. And you don't have to have like the 10-step morning routine or night routine to be successful. It's all about doing things that are in alignment with you, basically.
Exactly. And I mean, it's so true. Everybody does say meditation and journaling and whatnot, but that's because that's what works. It's
Mhm.
not a cliche. Like, it actually works. And that's something that you should be trying to implement into your daily routines for sure. And I love that you also struggled with your money mindset, because that's where I struggle the most as well. So I know how difficult it is to rewrite those stories and to let go of that scarcity and the lack and just all those
Mhm.
worries and fears. Like, it's such a challenge. What did you do
Yeah.
to work on that yourself? Like, what was your experience like rewriting those stories and changing that perspective?
Yeah, so for me, especially I grew up, being as like a woman of color, Latin culture, and this is also true across so many different types of cultures. The more that I talk with clients about this, I grew up with, in typical, middle class family. And, I was raised to think that, money doesn't grow on trees. You're going to have to work your tail off, get a good job, get security. My mom was a single mom at one point, and seeing her struggle, that also really created the story that I grew up with about money, right? So it was a story around like if I held on to money more, it wouldn't go away. And when in reality, that belief that I had was actually stopping me from receiving more money. And I know
Mhm.
it sounds so, I'm gonna say woo woo or whatnot, but it really is so important to know that like money is energy. Money is energy.
Mhm.
It ebbs and flows. It comes, it goes. It's currency, right? You're literally giving money in exchange for energy. And once that clicked, like once I really got that and really worked to really rewrite all of those limiting beliefs, like I had to literally change my mind from going back to what I believed as a young child about money and had to recreate it. So for me, I mean, going back to the journaling, a lot of future visualization, rewriting my money story has been really helpful, and not just writing it down, but like I mentioned before, like actually fully embodying it. So, okay, cool, you're writing it down, you're scribbling it on a piece of paper, but do you actually believe it? And that's where I would have to sit. And again, like you can do so many different things. I mean, there's like trauma releasing work that you could do. There's hypnosis, there's meditation, there's so many different things. There's movement. So it's finding like what works best for you. So for me, it was a combination of journaling, movement. I find that I am most clear and I get most clarity when I'm walking or going outside in nature. So for me, that's a big part of my like mindset experience, if that makes sense, and how
Mhm.
I work and condition my mind. But yeah, money mindset is something that you have to consistently work on because you know how they say like new level, new devil, and it's so true. And even when you scale and grow your business, I have clients that hit these multi six figure marks in their business and come to me the next day and say like, is this going to go away? Is it a fluke? Is my money going to dry out? And it's happened to every single one of us. And I think it's just learning how to navigate that, no matter what level you are, will help you grow.
Exactly. And when you exercise that muscle, you have the tools in your tool belt to be able to deal with those. It's going to be easier for you to just whip them out when you do get to that next level and that fear or those worries and that doubt comes up again,
Mhm.
because they do come
Absolutely.
up at every level. Something's going to come up for you to deal with that you need to heal in order to continue growing to that next level, right? So just
Hmm.
equipping yourself with the tools that you need in order to continue moving through each level.
Absolutely.
All right, I want to know all about your offerings. I know you have the agency, the consulting, the EDU. So what is all that? What do you have available to us so that we can work with you and learn from you?
Yeah, so we have the agency side and the consulting, and that is for, business owners that are really looking for like a hands-off support, very strategic support when it comes to marketing, branding, and PR. So we have that side, and then on the EDU side, I have my two programs, my Brand Authority Accelerator for recently established coaches, consultant, and agency owners who are looking to really refine and elevate their brand, and leverage the power of the trio that I teach. And then I have my Thrive Collective Mastermind, which is for my six figure business owners that are looking to scale to multiple six and beyond. And we touch a lot on how do we scale without burnout in that program. And then I also do master classes where I will teach one off topics. I'm actually teaching another one on all about PR and media. So if you are looking for support on PR, definitely come into my DMs. I'll probably voice memo you back and give you more information. But if you are not sure, just come connect with me. I would love to chat.
Awesome. So if anybody wants to learn more about you, what platforms do you hang out the most? Where can they connect with you?
So I am mainly on Instagram. My handle is at Hannah M. Nieves, and my website is hannahnieves.co. And I do a lot of free trainings on there, a lot of workshops, so a lot of really good value, especially in the highlight section. So yeah, definitely come hang out. We're a lot of fun in this little area of the internet.
You're going to learn a lot from Hannah, so definitely check her out. All right. Well, thank you so much, Hannah, for sharing your story and experience, but also for giving us such incredible insights and advice on the benefits of a solid marketing strategy and how we can create a solid brand presence and offer our clients the best possible service. I know so many are going to enjoy this chat and are going to have so many takeaways that they can implement today, which I know that I am truly inspired. So I am going to get to work today, and this has been the perfect kickoff for my workday.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm Jessica, and thanks for tuning in today to Love Unplugged, the podcast. If there are any questions or topics you'd love answered on the show, head on over to www.projectloveco.com and share your request with me. If you haven't yet, go to iTunes and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast and share it with a loved one. Your feedback means the world to me, and the community we've created is what fuels our discussions here. After all, this is all for you. Join me next time for another unplugged conversation.